Welcome back to the guided study of Act 3 of Romeo and Juliet. I'm Tybalt Capulet, and I'm going to be leading you through the rest of this act. Let's talk about what happened at the end of scene 2. So remember, the nurse came back and told Juliet what happened, how Romeo killed Tybalt, and therefore Romeo was banished. At the end of scene 2, the nurse was leaving to go to Friar Lawrence's cell to tell Romeo to come and comfort Juliet. So scene 3 is in Friar Lawrence's cell. Now Romeo has been hiding out here, so he doesn't yet know what the prince's punishment is yet. Friar Lawrence is going to enter, and he's going to inform Romeo of what the prince said and what he decreed. I would like you to start reading scene 3 all the way to line 71. Pause me now. So when the friar comes in and he tells Romeo what his punishment is, he says, on line 12, not body's death, but body's banishment. And Romeo says, be merciful, say death. Okay, so Romeo is saying he would rather be put to death than be banished. Because on line 18, he says, there is no world without Verona's walls. Because, as we know, Juliet lives in Verona. So Romeo is like, if I'm banished, then I have no reason to live. Now the friar gets really upset at this. And on line 25, he starts reprimanding Romeo. He's like, oh, deadly sin, oh, rude unthankfulness, this is dear mercy and thou seest not. So he's like, Romeo, this is the best thing ever. How dare you? You're so rude. You're so ungrateful. And Romeo on line 30 says, 'tis torture, not mercy. Heaven is here where Juliet lives. So again, he only wants to stay in Verona because of Juliet. And he goes on in this long ramble that he does where he's whining and he's like, flies have it better than I have it because they can kiss Juliet by landing on her and I can't even look at her. And on line 45, there's another instance of foreshadowing where Romeo asks the friar, hadst thou no poison mixed, no sharp ground knife, no sudden mean of death thou ne'er so mean but banished to kill me. So he's like, do you have poison? Do you have a knife that I can use to kill myself? And the friar is just getting really upset at Romeo's rambling. He's like, you're a madman. You won't listen to me. And Romeo on line 65 says, thou canst not speak of what thou dost not feel. He's like, friar, you can't give me advice because you don't know how I'm feeling. You've never been in love. You've never been married. So you can't counsel me in this. So Romeo is just being really sad and really unreasonable. And he's kind of acting like a big baby and saying that he wants to die rather than be banished. So he thinks that he's way worse off than he actually is. Now in this next section, we're going to see the nurse enter. Now remember, the nurse is coming from Juliet with the message that Juliet still wants Romeo to come to her tonight, even though she knows. So pay attention to what the nurse says and how Romeo responds. I want you to go ahead and pause me now and read to line 118. So they hear this knocking on the door, and the friar's trying to get Romeo to hide. He's like, Romeo, hide, there's somebody here. They'll take you and kill you if they find you. And Romeo won't hide because he's being a big baby and he's just crying on the floor. And so when the friar asks who it is and the nurse says, it's me, I come from Juliet, then the friar opens, the nurse comes in, and the nurse sees Romeo and she says on line 86, oh, he is even in my mistress's case, just in her case. So she's like, Juliet and Romeo are reacting the same way, right? They're both super distraught. They're both crying. And the nurse tries to get Romeo to stand up and be a man. She literally says on line 92, stand up, stand and you be a man for Juliet's sake. For her sake, rise and stand. Now, when Romeo hears the nurse say Juliet's name, he asks, how is it with her? On line 97. Speakest thou, Juliet, how is it with her? On line 101, where is she and how doth she? So Romeo's asking about Juliet. He feels like she's never going to forgive him, right? But the nurse is like, oh, she's very upset. She just falls and weeps and blah, blah, blah. The nurse has a very poor way with words. She never gets right to the point. She likes to draw it out. So she's saying how upset Juliet is. And Romeo hears this and he tries to draw his dagger, to draw his knife to stab himself because he wants to kill himself for how upset he's made his wife. The friar grabs his hand and holds him back and loses it on Romeo. Absolutely lays into him, calls him a woman, and he says on line 114, "Hold thy desperate hand, art thou a man? Thy form cries out thou art, thy tears are womanish. Thy wild acts denote the unreasonable fury of a beast, unseemly woman and seeming man." So here the friar is saying, you are acting like a woman. You are acting ridiculously childish and feminine. And he's just scolding Romeo and lashing into him, reprimanding him for his behavior. So we're actually going to skip down to line 141. Just know that in all of those lines I'm having you skip, the friar is just laying into Romeo, absolutely tearing him a new one. So I want you to read starting on line 141 all the way to the end of the scene. Now, as you're reading, pay attention to what the friar says. He's going to give Romeo 3 reasons to be happy, and then he's going to come up with a plan. So pay attention to the reason the friar gives Romeo to be happy and what his plan is. Go ahead and read. Go ahead and pause me now and read from line 141 to the end of scene 3. So on line 141, the friar gives Romeo the first reason to be happy. He said, "Thy Juliet is alive. There art thou happy." The second reason is on line 143. He says, "Tybalt would kill thee, but thou slewest Tybalt. There art thou happy too. Juliet's alive. You killed Tybalt before he could kill you, so be happy." And then the third reason, he says on line 145, "The law that threatened death becomes thy friend and turns to exile." He's like, you should have been killed, but instead you were only banished. There art thou happy. So he's like, dude, be happy. This is all good stuff. Then he comes up with a plan. On line 152, there's a 4-part plan. The first part, he says, "Go get thee to thy love." So he's saying, go to Juliet, hence and comfort her. Part 2, on line 154, "But look thou stay not till the watch be set." Okay, so that's part 2. He's like, leave before the guards come out the next morning. Okay, so go to Juliet, but make sure you leave her place before the guards are out. Part 3, "Pass to Mantua where thou shalt live." So the third part, once you leave before the guards are out, go to Mantua, which is a neighboring town, and live there. And part 4, "Till we can find a time to blaze your marriage, reconcile your friends, beg pardon of the prince, and call thee back with 1,000 times more joy." So he's saying, live in Mantua, part 4, until we, meaning the friar, the nurse, and Juliet, can tell everybody of your marriage and come up with a plan to have you come back to Verona. It's a great plan. Then he says to the nurse, "Go before nurse, commend me to thy lady." So he's saying, go tell Juliet the plan. The nurse is very impressed by Friar's plan, right? Because remember, the nurse is uneducated and she thinks that the friar is just the bee's knees. And then the nurse on line 169 gives Romeo Juliet's ring. She says, "Here is a ring she bid me give you, sir." Romeo on line 171 says, "How well my comfort is revived by this." So the ring makes him feel a lot better. Then the friar says, "Now go. Be gone before the watch is set, or by the break of day, disguised from hence. I'll find out your man, and he shall signify from time to time every good hap to you that chances here." So again, the friar is warning him, make sure that you're gone before the guards are out. And then he also says, "I will keep you informed by sending your servant to Mantua to tell you what's going on in Verona." Romeo is still kind of sad, but happy with the plan, and he leaves. Now, scene 4 is very short because we need to find out what's been going on with Paris. Remember, we met Paris in Act 1. He wants to marry Juliet, but little does he know, and everybody else, that Juliet is already married. So this is no longer an option for the poor guy. So scene 4, we're in a room in Capulet's house, and you're going to see Capulet, Lady Capulet, and Paris all talking. And they're going to be talking about the marriage. So I want you to read all of scene 4. Go ahead and pause me now and read scene 4. So a lot happens in this very, very short scene. So Capulet said, we had no time to move our daughter on line 2 of the scene, meaning that they haven't had time to talk to Juliet and convince her to marry you because of everything that happened with Tybalt. But Lady Capulet on line 10 says, I'll know her mind early tomorrow. So she's going to go ask Juliet tomorrow morning what she thinks about marrying Paris. And Capulet responds to this. He says to Paris on line 12, I will make a desperate tender of my child's love. I think she will be ruled in all respects by me. So Capulet is kind of going back on his word in Act 1, where he said, Juliet needs to be in love with you and consent to marry you. Now he's saying, I'm going to command her to marry you. So he's kind of going back on what he said in Act 1. And he asks what day it is. Paris responds on line 19 that it's Monday. And this is important because he says, Thursday, this is on line 21, Thursday tell her she shall be married to this noble earl. So in 3 days, Capulet is planning to have Juliet marry Paris. But he doesn't know that Juliet is already married to Romeo. He's saying that they'll have a small wedding with just half a dozen friends. Paris is excited about it. They all leave and Capulet says, on line 31, a Thursday be it then, go you to Juliet ere you go to bed, prepare her wife against this wedding day. So Capulet tells his wife, go right now to Juliet and tell her that in the morning she is going to be married. On line 31, Capulet says, a Thursday be it then, go you to Juliet ere you go to bed, prepare her wife against this wedding day. So Capulet is telling his wife, go and make sure Juliet knows that she's going to be marrying Paris on Thursday in 3 days' time. So things are really heating up and the plot thickens. That's all we're going to do for today. Make sure you complete your study guide. Now get ye gone!